Hey friends, it's your pal Mike Shea from Sly Flourish. Today we are going to do a character build. We're going to build a first level character using Level Up Advanced 5e. These are one of a series of videos that I started with the 2024 D&D Player's Handbook, but I thought it would also be interesting to build characters using Level Up Advanced 5e and Tales of the Valiant, and I'm hopefully going to build a character also using the Shadowdark RPG, so we can look at all of these different sort of 5e variants, Shadowdark being sort of an outlier because it's not exactly a 5e compatible RPG, but it is built with a lot of 5e mechanics into it. So I thought it would be fun, and it's very popular. People are talking about Shadowdark all the time, and I love Shadowdark. So I wanted to do a fourth one where we look at what it's like to build a character in Shadowdark, which, as we can all imagine, is going to be quite different than building it with these other three beefy 5e systems. So we're looking at building a character with D&D 2024. That video went up. You can see that now. I'm going to build one today using Level Up Advanced 5e. I'm going to do another video where we build one using Tales of the Valiant, and then probably a fourth one where we do a Shadowdark build. If you haven't checked it out, please check out the City of Arches Kickstarter. If you like the work that I do, this is the best way to support me, is to go support my Kickstarter for the City of Arches. Take a look at it, back it, and tell your friends about it. Best way to support it. The City of Arches is a high fantasy city sourcebook for lazy GMs. It is built around the same principles that I put into books like Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master and other adventure books that I put out like Ruins of the Grendelroot. It is a full city sourcebook you can drop into any campaign, whether you're running a published campaign setting or your own homebrew campaign setting. It can drop right in. It is a cosmopolitan city where mysterious archways let creatures from other worlds come in with no memories of where they came from. So any species makes sense in this city for any of the adventures you have. It is a city built atop ancient ruins, both below, within, and above the city, so there's lots of opportunities for high adventure. I've been working on it for 2 years. Patrons of Sly Flourish have seen it grow over time. You can get a 42-page playable sample of the City of Arches by visiting the Kickstarter page. It is a really, really cool book. I love it. I think you're going to love it. Please check out the Kickstarter. You can find a link to the Kickstarter in the show notes below. That is the City of Arches, a high fantasy city sourcebook for lazy GMs. If you are not familiar with Level Up Advanced 5e, this is a 5e variant that came out about 2 years ago, published by EN World Publishing. EN World Publishing has been publishing a whole variety of role-playing games. They run the website EN World, a fantastic forum to talk about RPGs, fantastic place, fantastic community that's been around for 20 years. Gary Gygax used to post posts over there. And Level Up Advanced 5e is built upon the 5e rules that came out in the 5e system reference document a while ago. It actually came out before the OGL catastrophe, but that actually had no effect on it whatsoever. The book was already published. It is definitely true to its name as being Advanced 5th Edition. They added a bunch of different things. We're going to talk about some of those things today while we're building a character. Probably the biggest thing you'll see is the addition of a huge combat maneuvers section. The combat maneuvers section has probably about as many combat maneuvers as there are spells. So it essentially says, hey, marshals, if you want a lot of different things that you can do with the same level of variety that spellcasters get for spellcasting, we have this huge pile of combat maneuvers. Combat maneuvers probably best compares to the weapon mastery system of 2024 D&D. Tales of the Valiant also has a weapon mastery sort of system, but in both of those cases, they are very small number of options, like 6, 8, 10 options. In this one, there are literally hundreds of options for combat maneuvers. So if you're looking for a huge range of combat maneuvers, you're going to see them. Some other big changes is they have renamed some of the classes to make them more universal and rather than culturally specific. They have a separation of heritage and culture in the species system, so that instead of being either all an orc or all an elf or all a dwarf, you can be a dwarf who was raised with orcs. You could be an orc who was raised with elves. You can be, you can mix your heritage and your culture quite a bit. We're going to see that today when we're building the character. Instead of alignment, they have a destiny system. We're going to see that as well. The rest of it is very clearly straight 5e. It is fully compatible with 5e. I have been running a Level Up Advanced 5e game for my Wednesday game now for a few sessions. They hit 4th level recently. They're kind of on their way to 5th level. So we got a good taste of what it's like to play Level Up Advanced 5e. And it's fully compatible. It feels like 5e. Nobody's totally shaken. A lot of these additional things like the combat maneuver system, my players have taken to. It's been kind of interesting to see how that's been growing. So we've been very much enjoying it. And I thought it'd be fun today to use the book to build a character in the same way that we did with the 2024 book. So let's build a character. One thing to note, Wizards of the Coast has been promoting the Player's Handbook as being the largest Player's Handbook at 384 pages. To give you an idea, the Level Up Advanced 5e Adventurer's Guide, which is their version of their Player's Handbook, is 659 pages. It is a huge, huge book. We actually bought a couple copies. 2 of my players have their own copy. I have 2 copies so that we can pass them around the table. And of course, you can get a PDF, which is what we're using today for our character build. It is a great, big, beefy book. It's got lots and lots of stuff, tons of subclasses in it. It's got tons of all the different options. Again, the combat maneuver system adds many, many pages. It is a full-featured source book in one big book. It is one of 3 books that are available for Level Up Advanced 5e, sort of their version of the core books. The Level Up Advanced 5e Adventurer's Guide, Level Up Advanced 5e Trials and Treasure, which is sort of their GM's guide, and the Level Up Advanced 5e Monstrous Menagerie, which is their monster book. The Monstrous Menagerie I have been using now for years, and I really love it. It's some of the best 5e monsters I've ever used at my table. I think it's super well balanced, an excellent replacement for the D&D 2014 Monster Manual. I really, really dig it. And for this game, I've been exclusively using those 3 books to run my game, and I love them as well. The Trials and Treasure book is fantastic. It's a really, really good set. And since you can get them in PDF, a very reasonable price. So let's build a character. The book starts with an introduction, what it means to play a role-playing game, what kind of tools you're going to need. It has a nice section here on like what a session 0 is. It has a little description of what it's like to play, all the kind of things that we expect from a typical kind of introduction to the book. And then it jumps into character creation. One of the things that this does right away is that it differs from how 2024 has you build your character, because you start with your character's origins. What is your heritage? What is your culture? What is your background? What is your destiny? Before you start to get into classes. So we are going to do it the way that they say to do it. I have a nice form fillable PDF. I'm going to link to all these things in the show notes. So if you're wondering where you can get your own character sheet, or you want to know where you can pick up the PDFs or the physical versions of the books, all the links to this are in the show notes below. I am using their form fillable PDF. I wanted to try to do one that felt as much like you're building a character from scratch with the book and with a character sheet and a pencil. We are going to be doing it digitally here. It's a little easier to see, a little easier to kind of manage when we're using the PDF with a form fillable character sheet. So origin, who is the character? Where do they come from? Heritage, these are the steps that we're going to follow. Pick your heritage, which is sort of like what you were born as, your culture, how you were raised, your background, what sort of job you had before, your destiny, what is it that drives you to play? This is sort of like a replacement for alignment, which is pretty interesting. We haven't played too much with destiny in my 5e game, but we'll do so here. Your class, what class are we going to pick? Level, and we have the skill specialties. This is important. One thing we figured out when we were making characters for our Level Up Advanced 5e game is that you kind of had to remember this part of it, that you get two skill specialties chosen from skills that you're proficient with. When you make an ability check to which blah, 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 you cannot gain the same specialty if you're intelligence 12 or higher, you gain an extra skill specialty. So skill specialties, it's not super easy to remember this pack, this rule, that you get specialty in two different specialties or 2 different skills that you're proficient with. Hit points and hit dice, proficiency bonus, determine your ability scores. So you can see how it goes in a sort of they sort of lay everything out, but the idea that like your ability scores are really handled last, which is kind of interesting. Talks about what ability scores mean, and then the standard array. So we are going to definitely be using the standard array, but we're going to follow the rules as they have them in here. So we're going to do our ability scores later. And then you do gear and figuring out your offense and defensive power and stuff like that. So that walks you through the initial steps. And it's got like, what do you do when you level up and things like that. But we're going to start with origin. So to start with origin, and we're going to look at our character sheet over here, and we're going to pick a heritage. I am going to roll randomly for my heritage. I'm going to just roll a d8 and see what we get. And we get a 7. We are an orc. Excellent. So right away in our heritage, we can say orc. And culture is where we grew up. So this one has a ton of them. Let's see. I'm going to roll first to see which of these 2 tables I should roll on. 1, 2, 3 is the first column. 4, 5, 6 is the second column. We are going to roll in the second column, and we're going to roll a d20. And I think if I roll higher than like a 16, I think I have to roll again. I rolled a 1. We are a deep dwarf. Culture, deep dwarf. So that's interesting, right? Background, 21. Poor urchin is not going to get it. There's no good way for me to roll a d21. So we will just roll a d20 and live with that. If I roll a 20, then I'll do a 50-50 between trader and urchin. Marauder. That's kind of true to the stereotype of orcs. So I have my heritage, I have my culture, and I have my background. Now we are going to go into here. The heritage was orc, so we can skip down to orc. So orcs mature faster than humans, reaching adulthood. They age noticeably faster, usually 60 to 75 years old. I wonder on the sheet where it has. Yeah, so age, we're going to be 30. Size, rarely under 6 feet tall. Let's say 6'3". Weight, size, somewhere over 200 pounds, maybe 230 pounds. Maybe 6'3" would make it a little bit beefier. 250 pounds. Eyes, we will say, what kind of eyes does he have? Black. Skin, we're going to use a wider range of potential skin tones. So we'll have him be sort of a mauve. Hair, brown. So we've got some basics of my age, height, weight, and all that. Now on here, let's see if it's got a section for, so it's got a features and traits, backstory, and then it's spells. So we're going to go to features and traits to add in the features and traits of being an orc. Orcish gifts. While most orcs are lumped into the same category, there are actually multiple orc heritages that hail from different regions and environments. Those who have ancestors barren desert. So we have acclimatized. Acclimatized, is that a word? It must be. Your family hails from a region known of extreme conditions or ancestral blessing. Choose one type of terrain. So for the acclimatized, you can be just like, choose one type of terrain reflecting the area from which your family hails. Arctic, desert, mountain, or swamp. You ignore all naturally created difficult terrain. Additionally, you gain expertise die on survival checks made with that. Or ancestral blessing. Orcs with this gift are believed to have been blessed by their ancestors. They get resistance to radiant damage, touch of the divine. You know the resistance cantrip. That would be cool. Magic Adept, the true origin of the Magic Adepts, the Odinai, has been lost to time, but the elders tell tales of fey-touched ancestors. You were born with magic coursing. So I have like kind of 3, acclimatized, ancestral blessings, or Magic Adept. I am going to randomly pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. 5. So we are Magic Adept. So we put Magic Adept in here. True origin of Magic Adepts. You're born with magic coursing. So let's see. You learn the cantrip of your choice from the wizard spell list. We will worry about that in a minute. And at 3rd level, you get other stuff. But we're not going to worry about that. Anything else? So I guess, yeah, you get a wizard cantrip. So that's pretty cool. I don't know what wizard cantrip. The idea of like being kind of Fey-ish would be pretty interesting. So one thing we're going to do here, though, and this is if you get one tip from this video, the same tip I offered when we did the 2024 walkthrough, write your page numbers down. Write your page numbers down next to what you're doing. And that way you are basically building an index of all of the things that you need. So when I put orc up here, for example, I am going to put down page 42. That way what you have is your character sheet acts like a personalized index to the book. And with a book as big as 660 pages, you're going to want to keep that there. So the idea of like, if I ever need to look up my Magic Adept, I'm going to put orc Magic Adept so I remember why I got that. Then we're set. So just because I don't want to forget, I'm going to go back to let's see, we have a nice table of contents here. I am going to go to the wizard spell list. Let's see if that's under the wizard, if they have the spell list under the wizard section. And I'm going to go pick that cantrip now. It looks like, here we go. Let's see. As a wizard, you may choose from the following spells. Cantrips. Acid Splash, Altered Strike, Arcane Muscles. Bulk your muscles deliver lethal unarmed strike. That's kind of interesting. Calculate, Chill Touch, Dancing Lights, Firebolt, Friends, Light, Mage Hand, Menacing. So I would, for a cantrip like this, I like to pick ones that can do a lot of things. I think I'm going to go with Prestidigitation, because Prestidigitation lets you do a lot of different fun things. So instead of like, oh no, go for a combat one, which a lot of people tend to do, I am instead going to, I like to pick one that is more of a role play sort of thing and has lots of different things it can do. So Prestidigitation is on page 579. All right, so that is it for my heritage. And now we're going to go to culture. And the culture, I already rolled one, and it was Deep Dwarf. I was raised with the Deep Dwarves. Deep Dwarves make their homes underground, far from most, blah, 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 living isolated as dangerous monsters. So I'm like a monster hunter of the Deep Dwarves. And this is on page 50. There are obviously tons of cultures. So this is a big difference between the 2024 D&D, which does not have any sort of culture group. They basically renamed race into species, but other than that, they didn't do any splitting out of adding the heritage and culture kind of idea, which has been pretty popular for 5e games for a while now. Level Up Advanced 5e, as you saw, has tons and tons of these cultures, and that's why, again, you have a book as big as it is, but boy, there is a lot going on in here. So you get Superior Dark Vision, Deep Magic, the Resistance cantrip. The Deep Dwarf we're going to do on page 50, so we'll mark that. So we are going to have Superior Dark Vision. You grew in the dark so long, the range of your dark vision is 120 feet. And put the page number down. Deep Dwarf, Deep Magic. We'll look up the Resistance cantrip some other point. Deep Suspicion, lack of trust protects you from some magic. Advantage on saving throws against illusions. That's 51. So we put the page numbers down for that. Resistance cantrip, we will jump over back to spells real quickly, and we will look up resistance. Resistance is on page 586. So we got that. That's cool. And now I think we've done our heritage and culture. I don't think there's anything else that we record for. Let me just give another quick look at Deep Dwarf. Underground combat training. Proficient with hand crossbows, short swords, and war picks. That's page 51. Languages. You can speak, read, write. It's Common, Dwarvish, and Undercommon. To another point that I brought up in the 2024 video, don't bother to write Common down as a language. You're wasting space because everybody can speak Common. Cool. All right. So we've got that. Then the next step, now we choose a background. And I think I already picked one, right? Marauder. Pick the Marauder background. Member of an outlaw band. You might have been part of a troop of cutthroat bandits or a resistance movement battling a tyrant or a pirate fleet. You lived outside the settled lands. How did you join your outlaw band? Why did you leave it? So ability score increases are, I'm just going to jot it down here. I'll probably take it away once I've done it, but +1 dex and +1 other. Skill proficiencies, survival, and intimidation or stealth. I kind of like the idea of being like, resistance. I think, I'm probably going to go with intimidation because it's always worth having a social skill, especially if you're like a big brutish type. And it sounds like I'm leaning towards a big brutish type. Tool proficiencies. So let's see. Survival and either intimidation. Tool proficiencies. One type of artisan's tool or vehicle. I don't have a list of those offhand. Suggested equipment. Traveler's clothes, single whistle tent. So let's go to our equipment. Where's equipment? There we go. Equipment is traveler's clothes, whistle, and tent. Okay. Feature, secret ways. When you navigate while traveling, pursuers have disadvantage on checks made to track your group. Allies and informants occasionally give you tips about the whereabouts of poorly guarded loot. After a few such scores, you may gain the free service of up to 8 bandits. That's kind of fun. We will put these up in our features and traits. So let's see, secret ways, and that's page 87. And then we have tips for unguarded loot. And then we have a connection and memento. So we roll a d10 for each of these. 8 for a connection. The cleric converted you to life. I have a connection to a cleric. Let's see, we're going to put these in backstory. Whoops. We'll put them in allies and organizations. And memento is 6. Love token from the young heir to a fortune. Ooh, put that under equipment. Let's call it the love token. And I'll put that in my character backstory. All right, so that adds my Marauder background stuff. So now I've done my heritage, my culture, and my background. I think now it's time for a class. All right, and let's go back to that original list and take a look. Character creation, make sure I've got it right. So heritage, culture, background, destiny. I haven't done my destiny yet. I don't know my destiny and I don't know my class, but we'll do destiny. Bang, destiny. Whoops. So all characters that would have a destiny, what they move towards. Oh, that's the wrong section. Destiny is kind of like a usable alignment. It's sort of like, instead of just having a general alignment, you actually have a thing that drives you forward. So do we have a list of destiny? Let's see, we got to count them up. Chaos, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 destinies, so we will roll. I got a 3. So devotion. is my destiny. Whoops, what just happened? Source of inspiration, its own reward. You draw inspiration from seeing your duty through to the end. So I'm devoted to something. Devotion is a pure or foolish thing. A beloved, a notion, a cause, anything, but for very few. For you, the choice is clear. The love at the center of your life is worth dying and killing for, and there is no limit to the service and sacrifice. The source of inspiration, its own reward. You draw inspiration from seeing your duty through to the end. You gain inspiration whenever you complete a quest, fulfill a difficult promise, or commit an act of self-sacrifice that includes grievous injury to yourself. Source of inspiration is, I wonder what I'm devoted to exactly. I don't know. We'll have to think about that. Inspiration features selfless aid. Your aid is a lifeline and steady source of resolve. Whenever you take the help action to aid an ally attacking a creature, you may spend your inspiration. If you do so, in addition to the normal benefits of the help action, that creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against creatures other than you until the start of your next turn. Selfless aid. And fulfillment feature is miraculous revival. Universal forces are often inclined to restore those who die heroically for noble cause, blessing their sacrifice. As long as you have not died of old age, 24 hours after you die, or 24 hours if your death is triggered by gaining this feature, you miraculously revive intact with full hit points. You appear after narrowly surviving the circumstances that killed you, climbing out of the chasm you fell down, clawing from the rubble, waking up from an impossible lethal wounds. In addition, the first time you were revived in this way, you gain a +1 bonus to all future attack rolls, abilities, checks, and saving throws. So that's pretty cool. So if you die, you get to come back. I failed to write this stuff down. So devotion is on page 97. I don't think I'm going to write down all of these other ones because I know they're all tied to that. So that's my destiny. Well, we can figure that out as we go. I don't need to do all that right now. So I have now fulfilled my destiny. So now we choose a class. And let's take a look. There are 13 classes. I'm going to roll a d12, but I really want to pick a marshal. So we'll roll a d8 and see what class we're going to get. 6. So I am a ranger. I presume, I think the rangers in this one do not have spell casting, so they do get martial abilities. Well, we'll take a look at what a ranger like. That's actually, again, that fits. I'm building the character in my head, and I think being a ranger, marauder of deep dwarves with an epic destiny in devotion sounds really cool. So where is adventure classes? Ranger is page 223. So we put that down, and we'll say first level in here with no, obviously we don't have a subclass yet. No archetype. They call them archetypes in this. All right, so creating a ranger. Hit dice, D10. Hit points at first level is 10 plus your con modifier. I don't know what my con modifier is yet because we haven't done ability scores yet. So that's a little clunky, right? Because I don't know what my ability scores are, I don't yet know what my hit points are going to be. I'll have to come back to hit points. But I do know that I'm a D10, so I can say hit dice is D10, and I have 1. Proficiencies. Where do we have proficiencies listed on here? Is that probably under... I don't see a section for proficiencies. Oh, so there's other proficiencies. We'll put them over here. So light, medium, armor, and shields. Simple and martial weapons. Tools. I can choose an herbalism kit, navigator's kit, poisoner's kit, or musical instrument, and a musical instrument. We're going to go with, I think poisoner might be kind of cool. And what kind of musical instrument would deep dwarves play? A small drum. My saving throws are strength and dex. So we will mark strength and dex on my proficiency for saves. Skills, animal handling, athletics, insight. I get to choose 3. Animal handling, athletics, insight, investigation, nature, perception, stealth, and survival. I'm going to go with, I get 3 of those. I like investigation. That sounds fun. I like survival. Survival I already have, so I don't need that. You can't ever really go wrong with perception, although usually somebody's going to be higher than you. So that is 2 that I've chosen, and I get a 3rd. We will go with nature, sure. Equipment. You begin with 150 gold, which you can spend on armor, weapons. You select your own gear or choose one of the following equipment packages. So I kind of like the Deep Delver set just by name because it's called Deep Delver set. And I'm a Deep Delver. So we have longbow and quiver. We have, and 20 arrows. Put that in one line, save ourselves a little space. Scimitar, short sword, scale mail, and a Dungeoneer's pack. And I'm left over with 6 gold. So I'll put that gold in there. So that's a lot of good equipment. All right, so I got all of that going. Exploration knacks. For a ranger, exploration isn't just something that happens between destinations and way of life. You start with 2 ranger exploration knacks of your choice. Your exploration knacks are detailed at the end of the class descriptions, the knacks known column. So I get 2 knacks. This is under features and traits, ranger, and this is on page 224. Familiar terrain. When making an intelligence or wisdom check related to natural terrain, you gain an expertise die if you're using a skill you're proficient in. While traveling in natural terrain, you gain the following benefits. Difficult terrain doesn't slow you down. Your group can't become lost. So familiar terrain, and that is on page 225. And I'm not going to write all these things down. While traveling in natural terrain, you gain the following benefits. And it looks like it's any terrain. When making an int or wisdom check related to natural terrain, we're going to put this down, that expertise on int or wiz natural checks, natural terrain checks. It's a lot to pack into that one line. I remain alert to danger even while engaged in another activity. While traveling, passive perception increases by 2. If you're traveling alone, you can move stealthily at a normal pace. When you hunt or gather, you find twice as much supply. While tracking other creatures, you also learn their exact number, their size, and how long ago they passed in the area. So that's pretty cool. And let's see, studied adversary. You have significant experience studying, tracking, hunting, and even communicating with your enemies. Choose a type of adversary: aberrations, beasts, celestials, constructs, dragons, elementals, fae, fiends, giants, monstrosities, ooze, plants, or undead. Alternatively, you can select 2 humanoid heritages, such as gnolls or orcs, as studied adversaries. You have advantage on survival checks to track your studied adversary, as well as on ability checks to recall information about them. You also learn to communicate with basic words. I like undead. I'm going to pick one. I want to pick undead. I think undead would be really cool. That my guy, being a dwarvish, deep gnome, knows that lots of undead lurk in the dark. So we're going to pick undead. They're really common in D&D. The page number for this is page 226. Undead, and that way I can do lots of kind of fun tracking of undead. I think that's really cool for a ranger. Combat maneuvers start at 2nd level, so we're not going to worry about that right now. So then we pick our knacks. Let's go to our knacks section. A lot of stuff going on with exploration knacks. Beast friend. You spend 10 minutes befriending or feeding a medium or smaller beast of 1/8, unless you become its guardian ranger. It follows you and is loyal to you, but it acts independently. In combat, it rolls its own initiative, acts its own turn. So I could get my own little beast. Build shelter. You can spend a day building a basic shelter which protects up to 8 people from the elements and reduces the likelihood of attack from monsters and bandits. Shelter counts as a haven. That's pretty good. It lasts for as long as it's needed. That's not bad. The Call of the Wild. Use verbal, nonverbal to communicate with beasts. You gain basic information from them. Ear to the ground. Spend 1 minute remaining stationary using sound and vibrations alone until you move or take an action. You are able to deduce information up to 30 feet in every direction as if using blind sight or tremor sense. I like that one a lot. And because it's thematic for my being a deep dwarf, being raised by deep dwarves. So we're going to ear to the ground. Expert forager. Once between long rest, you can take 1 minute to collect a number of edible, non-poisonous plants and grubs. Creature can use this action to eat up to 5 plants or grubs, each of which restores 1 hit points and constitutes 1 supply. That's kind of cool. Grubs die and spoil after 1 hour of being collected. Forced marcher. You can travel an additional number of hours equal to your proficiency. Guide. While traveling, you would have a failure or critical failure in a scout journey activity. You succeed instead. Healing solves. There's a lot of these knacks. Oof. Once between long rests, you can spend an hour to collect natural ingredients and concoct an ointment that speeds healing. The solve is potent for 24 hours as the number of uses equal to 1 plus your wisdom modifier. As an action, you can use the solve to restore 1d4 hit points to a creature within reach. That's pretty good. Hang on to that one. Herbal bitters. You can spend an hour to collect ingredients and brew 2 servings of bitter drink that is potent. Imbibing the serving takes an action and reduces fatigue. Huntsman. When you use the hunt-or-gather journey activities, you gain advantage. Long walker. When you would gain a level to fatigue due to supply during a journey, you do not. Master tracker. Oh, some of these are have prerequisites. Did some of these other ones have prerequisites? No. That one does. Master tracker, you have to be 9th level, so I'm going to skip that one. Monster mimic. By imitating how beast or study adversary sounds, you gain advantage in deception and intimidation made to convince a creature that it's seeing or hearing that beast or studied adversary. That's pretty cool. Poisons and antidotes. Once between long rests, you can spend 10 minutes to extract 3 doses of liquid poison. When ingested, a creature makes a DC 10 con saving throw, or it is poisoned for 1 hour. From poisonous plants, you forage for an hour searching for DC 10 survival check. Alternatively, using the same plants, you can spend an hour making a dose of antitoxin. Kind of fun. Read the room. By spending 10 minutes observing facial expressions, body language, and vocal, you can detect minute details which give insight into the creatures within 30 feet of you. For the next minute, you can direct your focus on any one creature you can see within 30 feet. If the creature you choose has an intelligence of 3 or lower and does not speak any language, the creature is unaffected. You learn the surface thoughts of a creature. That's kind of a fun... You sort of get like a... Yeah, read the room is pretty cool. I don't know if it fits. Relentless pursuit. Once you have successfully picked up the tracks of a creature, you're able to follow those tracks without any need for further checks for a period of up to 7 days. See the unseen. Once between long rests, you can focus your attention on peripheral sights, sounds, and other signs of unseen passage. For the next hour, you can detect invisible creatures and objects, their locations, movement, and actions, and even sense creatures. I'm going to do that one. See the unseen. A lot of knacks to read through. So that's a lot of stuff you have to kind of like dig through. But these, I think this is because basically rangers do not get spellcasting, right? So you get these other things that are even different than combat maneuvers, which you get at 2nd level. So lots of stuff there. I think that is it for the class, right? I got my equipment. I've got other stuff. So now we're done with that. Let's go back to character creation here. Skill specialties. Yes. So at first level, you gain your first 2 skill specialties. So which ones am I specialized in? Okay. So let's see. At first level, you gain your first 2 skill specialties. I want to make sure to get this. When you make an ability check with which your skill specialty applies, you gain an expertise die. You may not gain the same skill specialty twice. If your intelligence is 12 or higher, you gain another one. More information on skill specialties are on page 405 and 408. Let's take a look at that. I think that's under... So with each of the, I think it's with 408. Skill specialties. In addition to having proficiency in a skill, a character may be an expert in a narrow area of specialization within that skill. For instance, a character proficient in the deception skill may be particularly adept at communicating through written code. Character gains 2 skill specialties at first level, plus bonus knowledge, see 405. It gains an additional specialty whenever their proficiency bonus increases, so if 5th level. When a creature makes an ability check with which it is skill specialty, they gain an expertise die. So you can look at the skills. So I could be like a specialist in intimidation. Character makes an intimidation check, blah, 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 blah. Specialties: authority, ferocity, interrogation, subtle threats, or weapon displays. None of those grab me. Investigation, appraisal, deciphering, forensics, gathering rumors, research, and trap finding. I kind of like investigation, forensics. Investigation, I am going to take forensics. Because I think I deal a lot with undead. So like the dead and the undead, I think are good ones for me. Nature has astronomy, beast lore, farming, fae, plant lore, or weather. Perception has farsight, invisible objects. I like that one. I like that I kind of hunt spirits. So perception, well, let me just check survival and see if there's any cool survival one. Dungeoneering for survival would be pretty good. We're going to do that. Cool. So I have my specialties now. Is it yet time for ability scores? I think it is, but let's just go through the list. So level, skill specialties, hit points and hit dice. Can't do that until you do. So proficiency bonus. That one's easy. 2. Determine ability scores. So to determine ability scores, we are going to use the standard array. 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8, and I get a +1. So I've got 16, 14, 14. So I basically have 16, 14, 14. So I'm going to put the 15 here and then get the +1 bump because the Deep Dwarf got a +1 to that, and that's a +3. Con sounds good. I'm going to put a 14 there, and that's going to be boosted by my other +1. So that's where my other one goes. And then I have another 14. I like wisdom. And let's see. My intelligence is probably not great. So we're going to do 8 on that. And charisma is a 10. Whoops. And strength will be the 12. And my save on that is +3. My save on that is +3. And the rest those are the ones I'm proficient in. No, that's +5. And then we won't bother with the other ones. Because why write the number that's identical to the other number? Yay, so now I can do my hit points. And my hit points are going to be 12 plus 10. So my maximum hit points are 12. So that's good. Gearing up, we have all that starter gear set up. And now we figure out defense. So now we have to go to equipment. Start with armor. There's weapons. We'll go to armor. So this is kind of interesting. The sacrifice shield. When you take a critical hit, you can use your reaction to block it and sacrifice your shield, turning the critical hit into a regular hit. Afterwards, your shield is broken. Or if your shield is magical and instead becomes mundane for 1 hour. That's pretty cool. That is it's worth reading the sections in here because you get some little fun bits that were like house rules and other things, but here are not. So if I recall in my equipment, I had scale mail. And scale mail is 14 but plus maximum of 2 of my dex modifier. So that's a 16. But I get to use a shield. I'm probably not going to use a shield, so I'm probably going to stick with the 16 because I'm probably going to fight off with a I'm size medium. Speed is 30. Just filling out the rest of my sheet here. And let's see. I have a short sword and a scimitar. I don't know about 2-weapon fighting and all that. We'll take a look at that. But I'm going to put my short sword. Let's see. And my attack bonus for this is going to be +5 because these are light weapons. And the damage is 1d6 plus 3. So I've got that there. So I've got my scimitar and my short sword. Where would I find out? So let's see. We'll look up the traits of the weapons. I don't see anything about like light and finesse weapons. That's interesting. Oh yeah, it has it here. So let's see. Scimitar, defensive light, dual wielding finesse. Short sword, defensive medium, finesse parrying. So I can fight with my scimitar and my offhand, I think. It's got the parrying ability. That's interesting. Weapon properties. This weapon is designed to be wielded in concert with another weapon. When wielding another weapon in your main hand that does not have the heavy property, you can use your bonus action to make an attack with this weapon. See 2-weapon fading on page 446. Let's do that. When you take the attack action and attack with a weapon that does not have the heavy property that you are wielding in one hand, you can use your bonus action to attack with a different dual wielding melee weapon. Let's see. Yeah, with dual wielding melee weapon that you are holding in your offhand. You do not add your ability modifier to the damage roll on the bonus attack unless the modifier is negative. If a weapon has the thrown property, you can make a ranged weapon attack with it instead. If you have the extra attack action, you can use your bonus action to make 2 attacks with the weapon in your offhand. Interesting. I also have a longbow, which is also +5. And I think that's a D8. And the range on the longbow is really, really far. Longbow 150/600. That goes really far. So let's take a quick look. What am I missing? Oh, you know what? I don't have as a name. Garavan. I'll just make up a name. Garavan. The Dustwalker. That sounds fun. 0 experience points. I have all of this stuff. So an interesting thing to note here is that you don't put your skill numbers down in the skills section because any of those skills could be used with any of the ability scores. They are not tied to the ability scores. This is definitely different than 2024 D&D where the character sheet literally has the skills right under the ability score. A5e is not that way. So you just mark them and mention it. And this expertise die would be a D4 for these because we're just starting out. And you have all of these passives as well. So my passive stealth would be 13, I think. Passive insight is 9. Passive perception is 12. So I think those are correct. Maybe they're wrong. Who knows? But I've got a character ready to go. So you can see like, wow, a lot of different abilities, a lot of different features. Now we haven't gotten into combat maneuvers being its own thing. That when you reach 2nd level, you add combat maneuvers to it. And there's a whole section there that we are not going to cover today. But you get a whole bunch of other abilities and selection of what kind of combat specialty schools you're going to pick. And then you basically get 2 different, I think you get a total of 4 possible maneuvers to pick from 2 different schools. I think that's how, let's take a look at how it works for the ranger. Combat maneuvers. At 2nd level, you gain the ability to use combat maneuvers. You gain proficiency in 2 combat traditions from the following list: Biting Zephyr, Mirror's Glint, Rapid Current, Razor's Edge, Spirited Steed, and Unending Wheel. So you first pick which 2 schools you want to choose from. You learn 2 maneuvers from your choice from traditions you're proficient with. So you get 2 total combat maneuvers that you would pick. You gain exertion pool equal to twice your proficiency bonus, so 4, regaining any spent exertion after a short or long rest. You use your maneuvers by spending points from your exertion pool. So a lot of the customization of the ranger on top of subclass is also which combat maneuvers you pick, because it's a whole different set. And you can see why the level up advanced 5e ranger does not have spells, because you're not going to have both spells and combat maneuvers. That would be way too much stuff. But with the combat maneuvers, you've got a whole lot of different things you go on that you can choose from. So you get a lot of different abilities. And of course, you can swap them out. Whenever you learn a new maneuver, you can instead choose one of the other maneuvers that you've got. Friends, so there we stand. We built a first level character using the Level Up Advanced 5e game from EN World Publishing. I think it is a really, really cool system. Again, you can find links to all of this in the show notes. If you want to take a look at it without necessarily investing in the PDF, you can go to A5e.Tools, which has a web-based version of all of the rules of all of this. So you can scan through, read up on a lot of rules that I skipped over here, like combat maneuvers, things like equipment maintenance, masterwork items. There's a whole slew of extra amounts of stuff that they have added into it to fill out those 660 pages. There is also a full Level Up Advanced 5e system reference document, completely independent from the 5.1 SRD that Wizards of the Coast put out. So not only can you get a blank, like an art-free version of all of the rules of this that you can share with your players or that you can read over yourself, but you can write products directly against that A5e system reference document, which then also makes it compatible with the rest of 5e. So that's a very cool resource that Morris over at EN World put out. They put a lot of time and energy and money into developing the richest 5e system reference document available, and it's available under a Creative Commons license. So you can use that. It's really outstanding stuff. So I hope you'll check it out. I'm really enjoying Level Up Advanced 5e. I like it a lot. I suggest you take a look at it. And thank you for hanging out with me today while I built this character. I don't know if I'll run it, but it's a lot of fun to build. Again, if you love this video, please check out the City of Arches Kickstarter. You can find a link down to the City of Arches Kickstarter in the show notes below. A high fantasy city source book for your fantasy role-playing game. You can play it with Level Up Advanced 5e, Tales of the Valiant, 2024 D&D, 2014 D&D, pretty much any fantasy RPG with a little bit of work. You can get it to work with any of the fantasy RPGs that you run. I've been working on it really hard. I think you're really going to love it. You got a 42-page sample you can check out before you pick it up. There's no reason not to take a look, no reason not to download that sample chapter. It's absolutely free to do it, but I hope you'll support the Kickstarter. It would mean a whole lot to me if you did, and please share it with your friends on social media and tell them on other places as well. Thank you all so much. Have a great day, and get out there and play an RPG.